"Ma'am, I need to see your boarding pass again," the flight attendant said with a dismissive tone. Her eyes narrowed as she examined the ticket. "Your boarding pass has to be confirmed first before you're allowed to board." "Oh. So you can't board this plane yet? Step aside for others to board." Elise, the black CEO, extended her boarding pass again, her expression calm despite the storm brewing inside her. "There's no mistake. I'm in seat 2A. Soon, a security guard approached, his hand immediately gripping Elise's arm. She tried to explain her situation. His fingers dug into her simple suit jacket as he began pulling her away from the gate. Other passengers looked on, some concerned, some indifferent, some even nodding in approval. But within 30 seconds, something extraordinary happened. Massive departure screens throughout the terminal flickered, then went completely black. The boarding gate's electronic displays froze. Announcements over the PA system abruptly cut off mid-sentence. The confusion in theater minnow amplified tenfold. Passengers who had been boarding suddenly stopped in their tracks. Airline staff stared at their dead computer terminals in disbelief. Gate 37B was in complete chaos. Passengers shouting over each other. Carry-on luggage scattered across the waiting area. Airline staff frantically trying to maintain order but failing miserably. This wasn't just your typical flight delay frustration. Something much bigger was unfolding. This story gives the biggest karma that happens when a woman that was taught to be nothing and denied boarding the plane. It's powerfully revealed who she was and made the airline regret their decision. Have you ever been discriminated against at the airport? Share your experience in the comments. And if you stand against prejudice and injustice, hit that subscribe button right now. Type justice in the comments and tell us where you're watching from, because this story of justice is just getting started. So, who exactly is Elise Washington, and how did she become powerful enough to bring an entire airline to its knees? Elise's journey to becoming one of America's most influential tech CEOs is nothing short of extraordinary. Unlike many tech executives with privileged backgrounds and elite connections, Elise came from absolutely nothing. Her mother worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over their heads, in a neighborhood where success stories were few and far between. At 16, Elise was already showing remarkable talent with computers. While other teenagers were hanging out at the mall, she was fixing broken electronics from pawn shops and teaching herself to code on a second-hand computer her high school teacher had salvaged for her. This wasn't just a hobby. This was survival. By 17, she was making enough money repairing computers for local businesses to help her mother pay rent. But the road was never easy. When she applied to college, despite perfect SAT scores, she was waitlisted at every top tech school she applied to. When she finally did get into Northwestern on a partial scholarship, she had to work 2 jobs while carrying a full course load. After college, the pattern continued. At her first tech job, she watched as her white male colleagues with less experience were promoted above her. When she created an innovative scheduling algorithm that saved the company millions, her manager took credit for it. When she spoke up, she was labeled difficult and not a team player. But Elise doesn't break, she builds. Instead of fighting a system designed against her success, she created her own system. At 28, she mortgaged everything she owned to start Nexus Technologies. The company's first office, her studio apartment, her first employees, 3 fellow graduates, who believed in her vision enough to work for equity when she couldn't afford salaries. 15 years later, Nexus Technologies employed over 5,000 people globally, reported profits of $1.2 billion. Elise Washington wasn't just successful. She was a force of nature who transformed an industry. The morning of our story, Elise was preparing for what might be the most important deal of her career. In her penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, she packed lightly for her trip to Singapore. The Global Tech Innovation Summit wasn't just another conference. It was where Elise would deliver the keynote address that would secure a $500 million investment from the Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund. This investment wouldn't just expand Nexus Technologies. It would fund their most ambitious project yet. But unlike many executives who travel with an entourage, Elise preferred traveling alone on long international flights. It gave her time to think, to prepare, to strategize for the 20-hour journey ahead. She dressed simple, comfortably, but professionally. Black trousers, a silk blouse, and a tailored blazer she could remove during the flight. Her only luxury was a pair of handcrafted leather loafers. What Elise didn't know, as she headed to the airport that morning, was that her path would cross with Bradley Winters, CEO of SkyGlobe Airlines, a man whose leadership was driving his company straight into the ground. SkyGlobe Airlines was once the pride of American aviation. Founded in the golden age of air travel, it had built its reputation on luxury service and exclusive experiences. Their slogan, "The Sky's Elite," had once represented aspiration. Now, under Bradley Winters' leadership, it had become something else entirely. At 68, Bradley Winters was a third-generation airline executive. His grandfather had founded SkyGlobe. His father had expanded it, and Bradley had inherited the CEO position almost as a birthright. With silver hair always perfectly coiffed and bespoke suits from London tailor, Bradley looked the part of the distinguished executive. But appearances can be deceiving. That morning, Elise's town car pulled up to the departures terminal. She tipped the driver generously. Rolling her carry-on behind her, she entered the terminal. Unaware that this routine business trip was about to become anything but routine. Her day of frustration began the moment she stepped through the revolving doors of LaGuardia's terminal B. Having flown first class hundreds of times before, she approached the premium check-in area, a separate section with plush carpet, minimal wines, and staff trained to cater to SkyGlobe's highest-paying customers. But before she could even reach the counter, the gate agent intercepted her. "Economy check-in is that way, ma'am," the agent said with a dismissive gesture toward the long, snaking line where dozens of passengers waited. Elise paused, took a controlled breath, and politely responded, "I'm flying first class to Singapore." She held up her digital boarding pass on her phone as evidence. The agent barely glanced at it. "Economy check-in is that way," she repeated, this time with visible impatience. It was the first little cut of the day, a small moment that most white travelers would never experience. For Elise, she didn't argue. Instead, she walked to the premium counter anyway and was greeted by a different agent who processed her. Check-in without issue, though not without first double-checking her booking with visible surprise. After checking her larger suitcase, Elise headed to security with just her designer carry-on and briefcase. The premium security lane was nearly empty. A perk of first-class travel that usually made the exorbitant ticket prices worth every penny. But as Elise approached the TSA checkpoint, an agent waved her out of the premium lane. "Random security check. Ma'am, you'll need to go through enhanced screening." Police watched as three white businessmen in expensive suits walked through the premium lane without a second glance from the same TSA agent. She looked around at the randomly selected travelers in the enhanced screening line. Every single one was a person of color. When her turn came, the male TSA agent's pat-down went well beyond standard procedure. His hands lingered too long. He checked the same areas multiple times. His touch was firmer than necessary. This humiliation burned inside her, but Elise maintained her composure. She'd learned long ago that showing anger would only make things worse. She'd be labeled as the angry black woman, giving them justification for their treatment. As she collected her belongings after the screening, she immediately noticed something was missing. Her watch. Not just any watch, but a custom-designed PC Philippe, worth over $60,000. It had been a gift to herself when Nexus Technologies went public. More than its monetary value, it symbolized everything she had overcome. "Excuse me," she said to the TSA agent. "My watch is missing." The agent barely looked up. If it was there, it would have come through. It was there. I'd placed it in the bin myself. What followed was 15 minutes of Elise insisting on reviewing security footage, while agents suggested she must have forgotten her watch at home. Finally, after she refused to move and threatened to call her attorney, a supervisor miraculously found the watch in a separate bin, one that Elise had never used. By the time she reached Gate 37B, boarding for her flight to Singapore had already begun. Despite the delays at security, she still had plenty of time to board. First-class passengers are typically boarded first or given the option to board at their convenience. As she approached the first-class boarding lane, a gate agent named Meredith, her name tag clearly visible, looked at Elise with immediate suspicion. "Excuse me, ma'am. This lane is for our first-class passengers only." Elise held up her boarding pass once again. "Right. Yes, I'm aware. I'm in seat 2A. Meredith took the